Our goal for our marriages or long-term partnerships should be that they will be around for a long time after our kids leave home. That means being proactive to protect and maintain the health of our marriage or our relationship, because if we are not careful, that relationship then becomes all about parenting or fostering. Hello, and welcome to Creating a Family, talk about adoption, foster care, and kinship care. I'm your host, Tracy Whitney, and I'm looking forward to talking with you today about how to keep our adult relationships, marriages, or partnerships strong and healthy. To help us navigate that conversation, I am joined by Jeremy and Jara Walden. Jeremy and Jara have been married for 25 years and are the parents of 7 children, 3 of whom joined their family through foster care adoption. Jeremy teaches communication at Auburn University, while Jara serves with Big House Foundation, a local to them nonprofit that supports foster families, and together they are the authors of The Heart Work of Foster Care, a book written specifically to encourage foster parents to persevere, reminding them that foster care is deeply challenging, but it is also profoundly worth it. So welcome, Jeremy and Jara. We are so glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So let's dive right into it. Talk about how raising kids together, and this can be adoptive, foster, kinship, biological, whatever. Generally speaking, how can raising kids together enhance a marriage or a long-term partnership?
I think one of the things about having kids in general is that as a couple, you have something else to focus on beside yourself. You spend time and a lot of energy working on your relationship. But once you have a child, then that focus goes to the child and you have a joint mission. You have a purpose. Like, we've got something to do. We have a legacy to build. We have so many things we want to pass on to our children. And it just, as a couple, I just think it gives you that purpose and gives you that mission that wasn't there before.
Yeah. Jared, do you have anything to add to that?
When we first got engaged, I told my parents, we had not dated very long, like 2.5 months long. I told my parents, I just know that there's something that God's going to do through us as a couple. And I really always felt that way. And I think that, parenting, especially foster care and adoption, is one of those things that we just always knew we didn't know right away when we first got married we were going to foster, but we knew that we were going to be partners for God. And I think that ends up being what our mission was foster care and adoption.
Yeah. So having that joint mission, that unified purpose that's bigger than yourself, is absolutely one of the things that enhances a marital relationship. Some of the long-term benefits are also that sense of purpose, like that goal that you're driving for kind of keeps you energized and keeps you moving forward. It's not just about the mission. It's about how we're going to get that mission accomplished. So we all know that raising kids impacted by trauma or prenatal substance exposure or other significantly difficult experiences in their early lives can make parenting very challenging, and it can impact our marriages. It takes a lot of strength and character and flexibility and nimbleness, a willingness to learn. Why do you think that it is so much harder to parent kids in our community in terms of marriage relationship? Why is that so much harder?
I think the stress level is just increased so much with kids that have the inability to regulate their emotions. There's just a lot of emotions flying, and they're flying big and they're flying high, and
all the time.
It kind of raises the level of anxiety in the house, for everybody. We have 10 people that live in our house. My mom actually lives with us as well. We're as often we're coaching each other and my mom, and we're having conversations with our older kids that don't have a trauma background about why their emotions are so high and why they're not able to regulate as easily, and why everything seems like a 10 on a scale instead of a 2 like it actually should have been.
Right.
So it's just managing a lot of emotions and
yes, on
trauma.
On a super practical level, I think there is like a lack of sleep in general.
Yeah.
From the kids' point of view, they have trouble with sleep issues, whether it's difficulty going to bed, or they wake up in the middle of the night, or they're up at 5 a.m. because they're just up at 5 a.m. and just
bouncing off the walls.
right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
just the ability to just have a regular schedule is just difficult. And I know for us as a couple, this was true before we had kids, but it's definitely been true since we've had kids. Our only real time to be together is usually at night after the kids go to bed, because we both work and our kids are going to school and we're here, there, and everywhere. And so that nighttime routine becomes our time, but that is often interrupted. And that becomes a struggle for us, because since that seems to be kind of the only time we get, in a sense, to be together as a couple. And so that is definitely a super simple but real challenge.
Yeah. And you're not even able to come to that time of day at your best self because you're exhausted and depleted from the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the practical things like keeping them fueled and hydrated and rested become so consuming, and it just sometimes leaves very little in the bottom of the jar to pour into anybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what do you think it is about our kids' needs that test these adult relationships so much? In addition to the stress that you spoke of, what are some of the things that you see, practically speaking, in your everyday lived experience that test these adult relationships?
I think part of it is what she was referencing earlier about when the children's emotions get high, it tests our own emotions and our own ability to control our emotions. And we would love to think that we don't get escalated, but sometimes we do.
You do.
And oftentimes those interactions spill over into the adult relationship. I think we often, on a practical level, say things that we would never say otherwise if we were not completely stressed out.
Right.
And so I think that in and of itself challenges a lot of just communication, our ability to listen, our ability to focus. And I think at times when we're stressed, we're way harsher with our words and our tone than we normally would be. And that can definitely damage an adult relationship for sure.
I think that a lot of people have probably heard about the amygdala in the brain and the trauma and that sometimes kids that have been adopted through foster care or foster children, their amygdala is actually bigger and they actually go into fight or flight mode easier than other people. But sometimes what that looks like specifically is kicking holes in walls, slamming doors, throwing things, screaming, running away. And that does happen in our house. And the hard thing about that is that whenever their amygdala is triggered and they act like that, it triggers ours as well.
Right.
So then we have to have an extra measure of self-control to be able to control that. You know, if someone's in that state where they're literally kicking a hole in the wall and you have to remain calm, it's just really hard.
It
really,
is.
really hard.
And when you're sleep deprived, or you might be hungry, or you haven't had good, safe connection time with your partner, or you haven't had, a nice retreat time where you can back away and just take a breath, all of those stressors test the relationship significantly. I think one of the things that's probably pretty important to address at this point also is the fact that there are additional stressors from outside of our home that can impact and test our adult relationships. And one of which, a pretty common feeling among adoptive and foster families, is that they don't feel really very understood or connected to a community that gets what they're going through. What do you see in your everyday life experiences and the families that you work with? How do you see that playing out?
We have some friends who also have some children that are adopted through foster care, and they just moved here not that long ago to our city. And one of the things that she just keeps saying over and over and over again is, she's so thankful for our child. She's so thankful for us. She's so thankful because when they lived somewhere else, he didn't have any friends. He didn't get invited
Yeah.
to go to parties. He didn't get invited over. There just wasn't that understanding from other people. And we've lived here for 27, 28 years. So we do have a really good community of people that know our situation, are like-minded, or have a similar situation. Our foster care community here is absolutely wonderful. I actually work for a nonprofit that serves foster families, and we know a lot of people. So that's very helpful for us. But I could see that if that wasn't true for you, it would be incredibly isolating, because there are certain places you can't take your kids because they're expected to be quiet and listen and be still, and they can't jump up and down and run around. And there's certain places where you can't trust your kids to go alone with other adults, because unless you're a pretty highly trained adult or someone with a lot of experience, even other adults can't deal with our kids. We have had teachers, and God loves teachers, and I love teachers, and I'm so thankful for the job that they do. But we have had teachers pull out one of our other children to ask their advice on how to deal with our adopted child, which is just kind of funny because, the child was in 3rd grade that got pulled out for advice.
And that's a weight on our resident kids,
Yes.
our kids who've already lived in the home. That's a weight that they shouldn't have to carry.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it goes to that feeling of isolation and being misunderstood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But trauma-informed parenting and trauma-informed teaching and any trauma-informed adults are just hard to come by. So it is hard for, to trust other people to take them, not because I'm afraid the child is going to get hurt. I'm afraid the adult's going to end up,
Not going to understand what's going on. Right.
I think another thing related to that is a lot of extended family members, brothers and sisters, aunt and uncles, parents. They support what you're doing. Like they get it. But then once you do it and they actually meet the children, they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to interact with them.
Yeah.
They're different than their other grandkids, or they're different than their other aunts. Nephews and nieces.
Yeah.
And it becomes, from our point of view, it becomes an education aspect. Like we have to become the teachers to our parents and to our brothers and sisters about how they should interact and what to expect. And oftentimes, even if we just go to visit one of our family members, we kind of have to prep them ahead of time. Here's what's happening. This is what may or may not happen.
Here's where we're at.
Yeah, here's where we're at. And that's just different. And that is part of what makes, I think, some foster families feel alone. Like it's hard for people to understand it.
It's just one more isolating experience where you're not surrounded by people who get it. And that can be very, very hard on an adult relationship, because then you start kind of needing everything that you need from just one person. And we're not designed to get everything we need from just one person.
Correct.
But when you're around people who don't get it, you don't often know where to go to get what you do need. Yeah, that's challenging. So another stressor that foster and adoptive and kinship families often express to us is that there's one parent that wants to adopt or foster or keep adopting and fostering more than the other parent. How would that test and stress a relationship?
You can't go in two different directions.
Right.
So we're Christians. There's a Bible story about being equally yoked.
Yeah.
And it just means you're pulling in the same direction. And when your partner doesn't want to go with you where you're going, then that puts a complete strain on your relationship. And I think a lot of people, when that strain comes, I think it makes partners question each other about whether or not they really love me.
Yep.
If you're not willing to do this with me, do you really love me? Because this is what I want to do, and you're not willing to do it. I mean, it makes you question loyalty. It makes you question kind of the foundations of your relationship, which is really difficult. And nobody wants to be put in that place. But it is super, super common.
It is. Yeah. So you started talking a little bit about extended family, your group of friends around you. Sometimes when challenging behaviors come up and the kids are just like, you're kind of at your wit's end and you don't know where to go. You hear your family of origin in your ear, or the way your family did things, even if you're not hearing actual messages, knowing how you were raised and then your partner knowing how they were raised can create this sense of blame or this like a wedge between you. What are some things when you feel like you and your partner are on a different page, not necessarily about adopting or fostering, but about how to handle the situation in your home? How does that test a relationship?
I think there's been a few times where we had to be very direct with each other. We tend to be like pretty blunt and honest with each other, and we just kind of have that agreement that sometimes things have to be said. There have been times where he has told me that he thinks that I'm being way too harsh, and even though it was hard to hear, I knew it was true. Mm-hmm. And there have been times that I've had to tell him that, we have teen boys and I need for you to step up and do more for teen boys because, I'm going to go insane. We have just had to be really honest about that kind of stuff. We don't always agree. We don't have the same parenting style. We never, ever, ever in front of the kids disagree about our parenting. If one parent says this, and then the other parent has to agree. Yeah. But behind closed doors, sometimes there's like a, I don't
Gotta
agree
work
with
this
that.
one out.
Yeah, I don't think that we need to do it like that.
Yeah.
So we do have those conversations. Our kids do try to triangulate, and they absolutely try to get what they want by asking us individually. We've gotten very good over time about saying, did you already ask dad?
Yeah.
Or, did you already ask mom? Okay, well, then that's the answer. That's it. There's no more discussion. There's no more. I'm not even sure why you're here asking me if he's already giving you an answer.
Right. Yep. That's good. Yeah. Because otherwise it really can stress the marriage or stress the partnership for sure.
I think we made a decision long time ago that we're a team. And as you mentioned at the very beginning of the show, we're going to be together long after our kids leave home.
Right.
So we have to be a team at all times, and we cannot let a child or children in general divide us. Just like we made a commitment to that a long time ago.
But that does mean having hard conversations sometimes. And it doesn't always mean agreeing either. It just means that you have to do the hard work of grinding it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes even just the process of, as you said, grinding it out can be a stressor on the marriage. Mm-hmm. And it's I've found in our experiences that it's good to just kind of take a pause and not even feel like you have to have a conclusion to that conversation right now. If you sense that grinding it out is starting to stress the relationship more than it is producing a helpful response, then maybe it's time to just take a pause. Yeah, for sure. That's good. That's good. So one other stressor that we can mention is grief or mismatched expectations, like, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be, or this is not what I thought my child's future was going to look like, or this diagnosis, it was completely out of left field and unexpected. In the families that you work with, when you see that grief or loss that they're grieving, or a mismatched expectation, what do you suggest that they do to handle that stressor?
You want to talk about the expectations part of it first, about how we have different expectations?
Yeah, I think that all of that is very real and very hard. And I think that's probably the thing that I continue to wrestle with the most over time is you never know what you're signing up for. Whenever you sign up for foster care and adoption, I always remind myself, you also never know when you biologically have a child. Yep. You have to accept what you're given. And it's just not as easy as it should be. I think that continually reminding yourself of that this is what I was given. This is what I'm walking through, and not trying to change what you can't control is really, really helpful. I wrote down a verse from Philippians 4:6 that is something that really, really helps consistently, because I tend to worry about the future and worry about, are they going to be able to have a job, keep a job, graduate from high school? Are they going to ever move out? Are they going to get in legal trouble? Are they going to, all the things? Yep. And it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And that's really about control. It's really about you're making up stuff in your brain that hasn't even happened yet. Like, you don't even know what's going to happen. We don't know what the future holds, and it's not ours to control.
Right.
And so I think that it's a constant reminder. It's a daily reminder that they are mine today. They're mine to love and guide and direct today, and do the best that we can, and deal with tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you a real life example. So you mentioned loss.
Yeah.
Anytime, we have adopted 3 children, but we've returned more children, or more children have moved out of our home and have gone to other family members, or even gone back home. Yeah. And just learning to let go is a loss process. It's a grieving process, and we've gone through it many times. But a real interesting story about loss in our own family is we had 2 children that we had for 2.5 years, and they were actually the biological siblings of our adopted daughter. So our adopted daughter came into our care. She came into our care as a foster child when she was 2. We adopted her when she was 5. When she was 8 or 9, her mom had 2 more children that we didn't know anything about. They went into care. We got the phone call. We took them, and we had them for 2.5 years. And they eventually went back home to the mom. And we were very nervous about that, very scared about that, because of the previous relationship we had with her oldest daughter. And so we went through a grieving process that was very difficult. But as a marriage, you both experience it, but I know it was weighed very, very heavily on her. Because of that connection we had to our own adopted daughter, and the fact that this was her siblings, and a lot of questions about, are they going to be able to keep a relationship? What is this going to look like moving forward? It was just deeper than maybe some of the other children that moved on from our home. But the good news is we have still a relationship with them. We get to see them. After they went back home, we asked if we could sort of become a grandparent role to them, to those children. And so I'm Pop, and this is Gran to those children. Yeah. And we still get to see them. They come to our house. They spend weekends with us. The whole family, not just the kids, the mom. And over the last several months, the mother and the 2 children's dad have gotten back together. And they recently got married. And they asked us to be part of the wedding.
Wow.
And so my oldest daughter, who is her oldest daughter, was one of the bridesmaids in the wedding. And she actually asked me to walk her down the aisle.
Wow.
And so it's an amazing story.
That's
about
amazing.
how, yes, we went through this grieving process, but in the end, big picture, we have a great relationship, and we were anxious and worried about something that in the big picture, we didn't need to be anxious or worried about.
Yeah. And it's also a great story of holding your expectations loosely, staying united as a marriage and as a partnership, that although this is the hardest thing we've done, it's the right thing to do. And we're going to keep supporting and encouraging each other to keep healing and keep holding those expectations loosely, because you don't know. There's no way you could have predicted that this was how your family would expand in this way. Yeah.
Right. Correct.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful story. I want to stop the conversation for just a minute to let you know that we have a library of 15 free courses specifically designed to strengthen your family. Whether you are married or in a long-term partnership, the courses in this library are designed to help you raise a strong, healthy family. You can find the courses at bit.ly/JBF support. That's bit.ly/JBF support. And we thank the Jockey Being Family Foundation for sponsoring this library of courses to bring to you. Let's go back and listen more about strengthening our marriages. What are some of the situations that children have when they experience trauma, when they are coming to you from an unstable background or a neglectful background or any trauma like that? What are some things that they might bring into the home that creates, another level of strain? So we're talking about the everyday, the actual practical behaviors. You had alluded to one of them at the beginning of the conversation, so we'll start there. Triangulation. So what is it? And why is it problematic for what it brings to your home and to your marriage?
Kids will try to get what they want any way that they can. And some of these kids have used that as a survival tactic. And so it's not, I love to think about how kind of street smart our kids are when they come to us as a positive, because it means that they were able to survive really hard situations. But it also means that they're able to be very manipulative and do whatever they have to do to get what they want, which just means they're going to try to divide and conquer. And they will try to pit you against each other and use you against each other and tell things that aren't quite true. And so, I think all kids actually do it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's worse if it's a kid that's really, really dead set on getting what they want and what they need, and they don't know that you're there for them. They don't yet understand that I can count on these people.
Right.
So they are going to try to manipulate to get what they need.
And that's the significant difference when we're talking about triangulation in adoptive and foster and kinship kids versus maybe our biological kids. The intent is different. So kids that are doing it based on just wanting to get what they want versus kids that are doing it to survive.
Right.
And it's a self-protection thing that they're doing because they've not ever really learned other ways to get their needs met.
Right.
Yeah. And they've never learned how to trust, or their trust has been broken enough times that they've decided, unconsciously decided, I have to take care of myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say another thing that we've run into multiple times with foster kids that is very much a strain on us, not so much emotionally a strain as it is physically a strain, is we've had a lot of little girls come into our home who would not allow him to help me parent at all. They were terrified of men.
Yeah.
They didn't want anything to do. One specific child was so afraid of him that she didn't even want him in the same room with her. And she ultimately needed to be with a single mom, and she really didn't need to be with the other kids either. But we had her for a while, and it was a long, hard while for me because I had to be her sole provider and her sole caretaker. She would not allow anyone else to do anything for her. And that's not the only time that's ever happened. I think for us, it's been pretty common.
Yeah.
I was going to say, even if we go into it with a team mentality, we're going to be here together, we're parenting together, oftentimes the trauma itself won't allow us to do that.
So how could parents then function as a team, still function as a team, but present differently to a child who has that kind of a different need?
What we ended up doing was, he helped do a lot of other things besides take care of her. And that kind of became my sole role, was help with her and take care of her. We did still run into some roadblocks with when I absolutely had to leave the house and she couldn't come with me, or I needed her not to come with me.
Right.
Those were probably our worst moments. And so, we don't have all the answers for that every time. You really need somebody you're close to for respite. You really need another foster parent that gets that and can kind of step in occasionally in those situations. I mean, ultimately, we didn't force the issue a whole lot, but we definitely had to force the issue a little bit. Like, hey, I know that you've had some fears and some hard times, but like, he's not going to touch you, but he is going to be here at the house, you know, and like,
right.
I mean, so we were talking earlier about being direct. We've had to say some very direct things to even some relatively young kids.
Right.
And she was really good in those situations she was the one who introduced me to them.
Right.
She was the one. And as she's interacting with them, she would say good things about me to them. Right. Without me even being present, just as a way to present. Eventually, you're going to realize that this is a man that you can trust. Mm-hmm. And we completely acknowledge that you've been hurt in the past by men, and we understand why you feel the way that you do. But not every man is this way. But it takes time. That takes a long time to work through those trust issues.
And keeping your marriage strong while you're walking through that might look like you, Jeremy, stepping back and you handling all the dishes and the laundry 100%. So that she has the mental and emotional energy to handle the kids. And when the next child comes and the needs are different, you can switch roles or kind of step back onto the same page together. But it's all about just making sure that you two are doing what you two need to take care of you two.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. What other difficulties might a child kind of present in a home that would be a stressor on a marriage, if you can think of any others that we missed?
He talked about sleep earlier, but there's been studies that show that foster kids don't sleep like as much as normally developing children, and it is a stress because when a child comes into your home and they won't go to sleep or they won't stay in a room by themselves, or then you don't get to even necessarily be together when you fall asleep. Whenever there's a child that is really struggling with sleep, and it might be for the first week, it might be for 2 weeks, it might be on and off forevermore. You might have to be up and down a lot, and you might have to stay up later than you want to. And there's been a lot of times that I sat in a doorway because a child was terrified until they fell asleep. Yeah. And he's snoring downstairs and but then again, if it's a female child, he can't be the one to do it. And so
right. And just learning how not to store any resentment about that.
Right.
To just keep bringing it back to how you're supporting and caring for your marriage, not storing any resentment about that, not storing any irritation. I can resonate with the irritation over snoring, but that aside, but yeah, it's that those are the things that, and then again, Jeremy, then your role might change. So you've gotten a good night's sleep. The next morning, you're the one that's getting everybody up and out the door for school so that mom can go get a, 45-minute nap before she has to start her day or whatever. Yeah.
And he is very good at that. He's always there. There are no male and female roles in our house necessarily, unless there absolutely has to be for the kids. But he's willing to step in and do absolutely anything that needs to be done. I need to be better at communicating what I need because I like to be really tough.
Just ask for it. Yeah.
I like to stay up with the kids and do all the things and then just really, really want to nap but not tell anybody because.
Yeah.
So, we don't have to always be that tough.
No, we shouldn't even try. So what are some signs that we might be neglecting or at least not maintaining our most significant relationships in the house?
I think one of the most obvious ones is when the conversations that you guys have is only about the kids. And we've had this problem where it's what's up next. Like as our kids have gotten older, sometimes I joke, I run a taxi service, right? I'm like here, there, and everywhere. And I'm running one kid here, one kid. And it's just because of that, sometimes you get in the mode of, all right, here's what I need you to do. And you run down the list of to-dos and here's what I need you to do. And all those things are necessary.
Yes.
But ultimately, what you're just discussing business. And
Right.
that in and of
Logistics operations.
right, logistics operations, 100%. And that's,
And that could easily be the only thing you talk about all day.
Right, right.
yeah,
So that's a good warning sign to pay attention to. Yeah.
right.
What are some others?
Irritation, I think just in general, if you just feel aggravated or irritated all the time, that's probably not a good thing. You need to take a step back and take care of you and figure out and assess what it is. And I mean, I think sometimes as foster parents and just caregivers in general of a lot of kids, we don't even give ourselves time to think about what might be wrong. We
Right.
just go around aggravated. And if we take a second to think about it, we might could resolve it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I do think it's possible to just get into a cycle of negativity, because things are out of your control.
Yeah.
That it's easy to take your mind down that road. And I think if you think everything else is falling apart, then you can put all of that on your spouse. You can put all that into your relationship and just believe it's going to pot too, without stopping and saying, you know what, it might not be perfect. It may not be great, but here's some good things that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's some good in my partner as well. Right. So if you feel like your partner isn't doing enough, or maybe even your partner has verbalized they don't support this anymore, or they wish they would get it out, you can go down that road and you can focus on that. But it's always healthy to stop and say, there's a reason I'm with this person to begin with.
Right. Right.
There's a reason I chose them. In fact, there's a ton of reasons I chose them. And so reliving those positives about your partner, I think will go a long way in how you frame them and their support for you. And also just, especially when you're in the difficult times, think back to the past positive times. I always say that life and marriage specifically is like a roller coaster. You're going to have ups and downs, but when you're in those downs, you got to remember the ups. You got to remember the positive things that have happened in your past, because they will come back around if you stay together.
Yeah.
You just have to get there for it to come back around. It's cyclical.
And when you have come to the point where you can't call out any of those positives, it is definitely time to take a step back and breathe and say, okay, we need to assess how we're doing. Because if I'm feeling all of this inside and I maybe haven't given voice to it, or I'm carrying some internal blame, or I'm carrying some internal shame, or I'm resenting you and I'm not talking about it and we're not getting it out on the table, then chances are you're feeling it too. And so we need to get it out on the table and we need to start talking. And that suggestion to, even if you just pick one positive thing a day to help you start reframing how you see each other and how you value that initial that primary relationship. Yeah, that's good. How does our own history of trauma or attachment challenges impact our marriages once we're now raising children with trauma impacts themselves?
So the only example that I can think of personally from my own experience is that my father passed away when I was in high school. And so that had a huge impact on me, but it wasn't a sudden passing away. He had been ill for several years. And so in a sense, because of that, I knew we were going to lose him. And so I think emotionally, I distanced myself from him to make it easier for that to happen. And carrying that into an adult relationship or carrying that into parenting has been tough, especially in foster care, because the possibility of them leaving is always on the table.
Right.
And so I think that if I'm not careful, I distance myself as a way of not hurting. And so that's the only real personal connection I can make from my biological family to what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Jared, do you have anything to add to that?
I really feel like I had a pretty decent childhood, but I do think that the expectations in my family were very, very high.
Mm.
And if you didn't toe the line, there was big consequences. And, we did get spanked, and we, it was a very, very structured environment, very happy environment. We played well, and we, loved each other. But I think that it has been difficult for me to parent in a different way. At first, I just completely rejected trauma-informed parenting altogether. I was like, kids need to just act right. And when they do something wrong, they need a punishment. But then if you try that, it doesn't work.
Right.
So, trial and error has shown me that, you can spank them, and you can discipline, and you can punish, and they're never going to learn. They just don't change. They don't learn. They can learn.
They're not going to learn that way. Exactly.
It takes a different method, and it is hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me because it's even different than the way I parented my biological kids. And to this day, how I parent my biological kids is different than how I parent our adopted kids. And it's a hard balance. It's a hard, line you're walking. And it's also hard to explain to some of the kids, because kids can't understand that.
Yeah.
And so just in general, I think that my fallback, if I'm really stressed out, is very harsh.
Yeah.
And so I have to constantly relearn and rethink and renegotiate with myself. Like,
right.
Okay, remember,
that's a good way to put it.
That doesn't work. Remember how we've tried this before.
Yeah.
And there's a different way that does work better.
Yeah. And I think learning how to recalibrate the balance of structure and nurture per kid is one of the biggest challenges. I also grew up in a very traditional household that had a very traditional mindset about discipline and correction and punishment and consequences, and learning how to adapt my expectations, but also adapt my responses per each child's needs, not just my adopted children, but my biological children also. That constant calibration, that can be a stressor on a marriage too. When you're both kind of just constantly calibrating, what does this child need in this moment? And do I have the full 100% unity with my partner that I need in order to enact this recalibration?
Well, and one day your partner might see you act super harsh and say something that you probably shouldn't have said to a kid. And then the next day they see you doing something completely the opposite of that and really trauma informed,
right.
And it's like, what, who are you?
What?
It's a flip flop, but it's a constant battle with yourself to do what you're being taught to do and not what you were shown how to do when you were growing up.
And I think there's another stressor when it comes to parenting, and that's when you just don't know what to do. Like something happens and you both looking at each other and you're just like, oh.
We have learned to laugh in situations that are
yes. Bizarre.
There's literal times when we hear mass chaos in a room and we just look at each other and we're like, okay, well. So
I have a friend, she and her husband used to go, nose goes.
Yeah.
When they hear that kind of chaos going on, they just take turns.
That's right. Yes.
Hey listeners, sorry to interrupt one more time, but I wanted to let you know that we want to learn more about you. So please use the link in our podcast player or the link on the YouTube show notes and tell us where you're listening from, what app you use to listen, what topics you're most interested in, or why you listen every week or every weekend to our Weekend Wisdom. We read all of your comments and your feedback, and we use them to keep improving what we do here at Creating a Family. So have at it. Tell us what you think, and we would so appreciate it when you speak up and let us know. Thanks so much, and let's finish up the interview with Jeremy and Jara. Let's talk a little bit about some of the specific strategies for couples who want to reprioritize their marriage or heal their marriage or partnership. If we've got a listener who's hearing all the things that we're saying and they're like, wow, all of those stressors have impacted my partnership. What specific strategies can you offer them to kind of recalibrate the marriage and its priority itself?
All right, I'm going to start with just start small. Do something. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Be proactive. And I think sometimes when we are feeling all of that stress, or maybe we've gone down that negative cycle we were talking about earlier, we just see a huge problem. And sometimes when we see those huge problems, we think, oh my goodness, I don't know that this can be fixed. Well, you can't fix all of this.
Right.
You got to fix this. You got to start one step. And so if it's we're not talking, we're not communicating, 5 minutes. Can you do 5 minutes a day? However you have to do it. Can you do that? So I just think the mentality of starting small, starting with anything is really important. The other thing I would say about that is I do think there's some research around the fact that when you have those connections matter, like early in the morning, like soon as you wake up, having a connection is important, or right before you go to bed, or right before you leave each other. Like those are critical moments to make you feel valued, to make you feel like the person's not running away from you or trying to leave you. It's, hey, before I go, yeah, we're about to separate, but before we go, can we at least touch each other? I mean, touch is massive.
Yep.
Even if you don't have the words, you don't know what to talk about because it's that strained. Just hold their hand.
Just a quiet hug,
anything.
or holding hands, or I've got you. Yep.
Yes.
That's good. Jared, do you have any simple strategies parents can use?
I would add that I don't know that this is necessarily about kind of healing the marriage, but it is extremely important to be able to kind of hold each other's really hard emotions and be a safe place for those, because I don't know if anyone's seen the Instant Family movie, but my favorite scene is where they're in the bed at night and they're talking, and they're trying to figure out how they can not keep those kids, but then the whole rest of everyone they know still think they're not horrible people. And they're literally having a conversation that's like, okay, well, how could we get rid of them, but everyone still think that we're like good people?
Yeah.
And I love that scene because it's so real, because those are the kind of conversations you should be having with your spouse. You should be telling them the hardest stuff that you have emotionally. He's heard me say stuff that I would never say out loud to anyone else on the face of the planet.
Right.
And he knows that my passion and my love and the fact that we feel like this is a calling from God is, I'm holding that at the same time as I'm holding some really hard thoughts about these kids. And you do have both, they both exist. The fact that we are called to this, the fact that we love these kids, the fact that we want to serve them, and also the fact that some days it is just awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really think that may be more of a preventative to getting to the point where your marriage is in the gutter.
Yeah.
But I still think that it's necessary, even if your marriage is in the gutter, that you allow each other to have those really hard emotions without being judgmental about those hard emotions.
Yeah, it's both preventative, but it's also maintenance minded. Mm-hmm. If you do it, but then you keep doing it, you're building that safe space between you. Because two things can be true at once. It can be really, really, really hard, and it can be the most joyful experience you've ever had. And there's a huge range in between of all of what it can be also. Right. Do you have any more strategies you want to share? Things that would help a couple in a long-term partnership or a marriage just build each other back up and keep that marriage kind of on the front and center?
Find respite care.
Oh, that's so good. Yes.
You absolutely have to prioritize time alone.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean like every single day you're going to get to be alone. But we go on trips and we plan a trip, and then we figure out what we're going to do with our kids. And we always figure out what to do with them, and it always works out. And we pushed the trip several months down the road, so we have time to figure that out. But, we don't go, hey, let's see if we can find someone to keep our kids, and then we'll plan a trip. We just plan the trip. And then somebody's going to have to keep the kids because we've already paid for the trip.
Yep.
You have to do that. You have to trust other people. You have to let your kids stay with someone else so that you can be alone. You have to readjust your marriage occasionally, and it has to just be about your marriage sometimes instead of about the kids. And
that's 2 tips in one you just gave. You find respite care and let others in. That's good.
Yes.
That's good stuff.
Both of those are really true.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention 2 more.
Okay.
One is, I think it's oftentimes when it comes to marriage, we repeat what we see. And most of the way we act in marriage is directly related to how we saw our parents interact. And if they struggled, even if we saw them struggle and we didn't want to repeat their same struggles, oftentimes we do because we just do what we see. And so to replace that or do something different, you often need to see a living example. You need to see someone doing it different. And so I'm a big believer in mentors. Even in trying to find community, we often want to find people in the exact same situation as us, which is super helpful because it lets you know that there are other people going through the same stuff. But I think it's really helpful to find somebody about 10 years ahead of you because they've already gone through it.
Yep.
And to just be around them enough, not that you got to go deep into marriage, but just to know that it's possible. And we've actually found that here. We have, it's a family and they literally are the exact same situation as us. They're just a few years down the road, right? 4 biological kids, 3 adopted children. And we've seen them, and not that we spend a lot of time with them, but we have spent enough time to them to know that if they can do it, we can do it.
Yep. You can get there too.
And they are at the point now that all their kids have left. And so it's coming there for us.
And their marriage is obviously something too that is something that you would want.
Yes.
They still like each other even.
Yeah. That's a good goal. That's a good goal. And you had one more, Jeremy.
Yes. The other one is don't be afraid to seek marriage help or marriage education.
Amen.
So whether that's going in the professional route where you seek counseling or you seek therapy, or going the more education route, all of those things are available. Please take advantage of them. Yep. It will only help you if you do. And we're here in Alabama. In Alabama, there are lots of free marriage classes and courses you can take.
Yeah. And
spending any time in those will help. Every little reminder. And a lot of times it's just you need reminders of things that you've let go, that you become distracted by. And just spending that time with your partner in those classes, that you can make those a date night. Just taking that time out to specifically focus on your marriage, I think will go a long way into helping repair it.
Yep. That's good. So there you have it. 7 tips. I'm going to just recap them really quick for you. So the first one is to start small. The second one is when you connect, what time of day you connect matters. Be safe for each other. Find respite care. Let other people in. Find mentors. And don't be afraid to get help.
Yes.
So there you have it. 7 tips. Those are good. We do have some listeners who are raising their kids as single parents. Often single parents by choice, sometimes single parents by circumstance. I would love to hear your thoughts on how they can maintain or strengthen their primary adult relationships, even if it's not a partnership, close friends, maybe a sister or a brother. How can they support and strengthen those relationships to give them the opportunity for maximal support and thriving and self-care?
In my experience, you're going to have to seek those relationships out. Meaning somebody's not just going to come to your door and be like, I'm here to help. I'm here to give you advice. Right. I'm here to support you. It's not really, it doesn't usually work that way. So you have to seek it out. And so make sure when you seek those relationships out that you are seeking advice and support from people who actually understand your situation. So having somebody that is trauma informed, having somebody that has foster care or adoption background. Super important just to have some experience and wisdom shared with you. So it's not just a random person. Even as close as a family member is, if they don't have that background, they may not be giving you the best support or best advice that they can. So it's seeking out someone with experience.
Yeah. Those might be the people that, the ones that aren't maybe trauma informed, they would be the ones that you could count on for taking the kids out for an ice cream date,
Yes.
or mowing your lawn, or doing your
Yes.
laundry, or picking up your groceries. But for the in the trenches, hardcore parenting decisions and parenting implementations, you're right. Seeking out a network of people who are trauma informed and who are willing to become more trauma informed with you along the way. That's a great first tip.
I would think that if your community has like a post-adoption
Support
group, like support group, or even a foster care support group, that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
If you don't have one or can't find one, I think that counseling is a great idea for everybody. I think that foster care and adoption can be so heavy, and there's so few people that you can really get it all out with, that counseling would be a good option if you don't have a support group. Because when you're with your friends, especially if they're friends who aren't foster parents or adoptive parents, you need to have fun. You don't need it to always be heavy. And so maybe put all your heavy on a support group or on a counselor, and then also go have fun. Do things with other adults that's not always about foster care and adoption.
Yeah. I would add that if you're looking for ways to find those connections and communities, you can check with your local school district. Quite often, guidance counselors have lists of groups that meet in the area for special interest groups or single parent groups or divorced parent groups. There's a wide variety of support groups and communities that our school counselors often have access to. Your pediatrician might also have some leads on those kinds of things. And then just intermingling and hanging out with other single parents that you know, and word of mouth gets around to, who's a great counselor, and, who's a great respite care provider, and, who's doing really good things in this support group community. Churches very often have networks and communities for single persons, or a local pastor or other faith leader might be able to direct you to another organization that would have one like that. So there's definitely resources out there. But as Jeremy said at the beginning of this conversation, you may have to do a little bit more legwork than, say, a married couple might have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to add one more thing. You were mentioning at the beginning about just getting help with basic things like cutting the grass.
Yeah.
One of the things that we say to foster parents sometimes is that as a foster parent, you're a helper. That's who you are. That's what you want to do. You're a caregiver.
You're a servant.
You're a servant. And when we have that mentality, sometimes it's hard to allow somebody else to serve us.
That's a good point.
And so even in those simple ways, like even as a married couple, we have had people come to our house to take some of our biological children out to play, to take our foster children, our adopted children somewhere. We've had people come over just to help with laundry. We've had people bring us meals. We've had people cut our grass. I'm not a handyman, but things come up. I don't know how to fix them, but we've had people come over. You just have to let people help. And there are people that want to help foster children, but they personally will never foster.
Right.
So by you allowing them to help you, that is their role that they play in the foster care community.
And if your church asks you how they can help,
Tell them.
don't say, I'm okay.
Right.
Don't ever say it, no matter, even if on that day your kids are all okay and you're really okay. Don't say, it's fine, I don't need anything.
Yeah.
Because you always need something, because you're dealing with harder stuff than most people have to deal with. And so it's okay to say, it might be helpful to have someone come help me clean. Like it might be helpful to have someone help with the yard. It might be helpful if I had just, an hour to myself once a week. Write down some things that you would love to have help
or a meal or
with.
two in my freezer.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then don't be afraid to let you're blessing other people by letting them also take part of this load.
Yep. And those are all very practical ways that you are protecting your marriage or your partnership, or if you're a single person, protecting your sanity and your peace so that you can prioritize your other adult relationships. All of these things go towards the bigger picture of keeping this primary relationship in my home with my partner, with my spouse, healthy and safe and protected, so that I can keep doing, so that he can keep doing, we can keep doing the work that's in front of us to do. So,
that's right.
Well, Jeremy and Jara, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for the practical suggestions that we covered, and for your vulnerability in sharing your own stories and lived experiences, and for the work that you do to help foster families build strong, healthy homes. I know that our listeners are going to feel very supported and affirmed by the information that you guys shared today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. And listeners, if this interview was interesting to you or sparked a few questions for you about your own relationship or your own family life, please drop a note in the comments or in the response link wherever you're listening, on your podcast player or on YouTube. And thanks for spending this hour with us. We will see you next week.